We spend most of our lives trying to control the world around us. People, circumstances, outcomes. But the more we try to bend reality to our will, the more anxious, frustrated, and reactive we become. Why? Because we're chasing control in the wrong place. Real control doesn't come from dominating the world. It comes from mastering your inner world. This video is about learning the rarest of all modern arts, the art of not reacting, a mindset that makes you untouchable, focused, and powerful in a world that constantly demands your emotional obedience. We'll explore how philosophy, especially the ancient wisdom of the Stoics, offers a way to transcend emotional chaos and live with quiet, grounded strength. 1. You're not in control, and that's a good thing every day. Something goes wrong. You wake up late, traffic ruins your morning, someone criticizes you online, a friend lets you down. The world, messy and unpredictable, doesn't ask for your permission. The average person fights this. They react, they yell, vent, tweet, overthink. But the Stoics had a radically different approach. Accept what you cannot control, and rule what you can, your mind. Epictetus said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality," and he was right. What disrupts our peace is rarely the event itself, it's our reaction to it. Your partner doesn't text back, and suddenly, you invent reasons, narratives, stories. You react not to truth, but to your projection of it. When you accept the randomness of the world, something unexpected happens. Peace, you realize that your power lies not in controlling events, but in choosing your response. It's in the pause between action and reaction that your strength is forged. The person who doesn't react blindly gains an edge in every area of life, in relationships, business, and personal growth. Because that person is hard to provoke, harder to manipulate, and impossible to unnerve. 2. Reaction is a form of weakness. We often mistake emotional reactivity for strength. We think standing up for ourselves means always responding, always correcting, always proving a point. But that's not strength. That's insecurity wearing armor. True strength is selective. It's quiet. It doesn't need to respond to noise because it's focused on signal. Think about the most respected people you've seen. Leaders, thinkers, even characters in film. They speak when necessary. They don't flinch. They don't rush. And that calmness, it's terrifying, not because they're angry, but because they're composed. That's presence. That's power. The more you react, the more predictable you become. And predictable people are easy to control. People who want to manipulate you rely on your need to respond. The troll relies on your outrage. The liar relies on your defensiveness. The manipulator relies on your guilt. But if you don't respond, if you remain still, focused, they lose control. You take it back. Reacting is a reflex. Mastery is a choice. 3. Emotional minimalism, protecting your mental energy. Imagine if your mind was a home. Every time you react, you open the door and let strangers inside. Anger walks in. Fear gets comfortable. Insecurity eats from your fridge. You wouldn't let just anyone into your physical space. Why do we do it with our inner space? Emotional minimalism is about boundaries. It's about deciding what's worth your energy. Not everything deserves a reaction. Not every insult is an injury. Not every conflict is a battle worth fighting. Think of Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, writing to himself at night about patience, dignity, and control. He ruled the known world but still reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Even he needed the reminder, and so do we. Start asking yourself, does this situation require my energy, or am I giving it away because I haven't yet trained my mind? You only have so much clarity each day. Waste it on petty arguments, and you lose it for meaningful work. Give it to social comparison, and you rob yourself of peace. Mastering this discipline is hard, but the freedom on the other side is unmatched. 4. Pause. Before you respond, the power of stillness. Let's say someone insults you, criticizes your appearance, your work, your lifestyle. The immediate impulse is to respond, to defend, attack, correct, but imagine doing nothing, just breathing, letting it pass through you like wind through an open window. That pause, that stillness, is where the transformation happens, because the pause is your chance to decide, will I be reactive, or will I be sovereign? Most people live like they're in a pinball machine, bouncing off every trigger, but stillness gives you space, and space gives you power. The moment you stop being reactive, the moment you start choosing, you rise above the chaos. When you practice the pause, you don't suppress your feelings, you observe them. You don't deny reality, you take command of it. Stillness is not inaction, it's measured response. It's the art of showing up fully, but never being owned by the moment. 5. Indifference isn't coldness, it's freedom. Many people misunderstand the idea of indifference. They think it means apathy, numbness, detachment, but real indifference, the kind practiced by the Stoics, is something different. It's not about not feeling. It's about not being ruled by feelings. When someone tries to hurt you with words, indifference isn't ignoring the pain. It's understanding that your value isn't up for negotiation. When you lose something, a relationship, a job, a dream, indifference doesn't mean you don't care. It means you don't collapse. You grieve, you feel, you move on, you stay rooted. Indifference is stability in a world that's emotionally chaotic. It's saying, I will not be owned by this. I will not be shattered by this. I will keep my peace, even when the world wants me to lose it. This is not the coldness of a person who feels nothing. It's the strength of a person who refuses to be broken by everything. 6. How to practice the no-reaction discipline. So, how do you train this mindset? Here are 5 practical tools, grounded in philosophy and modern psychology. 1. Journal your reactions. At the end of each day, reflect. Where did I overreact? What triggered me? And why? This isn't about guilt, it's about awareness. You can't master what you don't examine. 2. Embrace delayed response. Make it a rule, never respond in the heat of the moment. Pause, sleep on it. Let your rational mind return before deciding anything. 3. Visualize challenges. Each morning visualize difficulties, insults, mistakes, setbacks, and imagine yourself staying calm. This is called negative visualization, a Stoic tool to prepare the mind for resilience. 4. Use physical anchors. When overwhelmed, take a breath and focus on your body, your feet on the ground, your breath, your heartbeat. Anchor yourself. Come back to presence. 5. Practice saying nothing. Not everything needs a response. Get comfortable with silence. Sometimes silence is the loudest message you can send. The world will never stop provoking you. It will never stop testing your patience, your boundaries, your ego. But your response, that's your kingdom, that's your fortress, and no one can take it unless you give them the key. The quiet person who doesn't react isn't weak. They're studying, calculating, choosing. You don't need to fight every battle. You don't need to attend every argument. You don't need to explain yourself to every critic. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing. React less, observe more, choose wisely, because the less you react, the more you rule. 7. The mirror of insults. Why offense is self-reflection. Every insult is a mirror. When someone tries to offend you, what they say reveals more about them than about you. A person calling you arrogant may be threatened by confidence. Someone accusing you of being fake may secretly envy your authenticity. But here's the catch. If you take every insult personally, you're accepting their mirror as your identity. This is why the Stoics trained themselves to become insult-proof, not because they lacked emotion, but because they understood that offense is a choice. It requires participation. If you refuse to play, the game ends. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't be." That doesn't mean pain disappears. It means that your inner fortress remains intact. You do not grant others the power to define your worth. When you stop defending yourself from every judgment, something unexpected happens. Your energy returns, because defending your ego all day is exhausting. But standing in quiet self-assurance, that's liberating. So next time you feel offended, ask yourself, is this really about me, or about them? 8. The ego's need to react. At the heart of most reactivity lies ego, that fragile part of us that always wants to be right, to be seen, to be validated. The ego hates silence. It panics when ignored. It demands to be heard. But ego is a terrible master. If someone cuts you off in traffic, your ego says, you must react. Show them. If your partner criticizes you, your ego whispers, don't let them win. If someone questions your work, the ego screams, defend your name. But here's the truth. Reacting to every offense is how the ego protects its illusion of control. It's afraid that if it stays quiet, it will disappear. But your soul doesn't need defense, your character doesn't require applause, and your purpose is not a courtroom debate. Sometimes the most ego-deflating and soul-liberating thing you can do is let it go. Let others speak. Let others misunderstand you. Let others make noise, and remain still. Because when ego leaves the room, wisdom enters. 9. Social media and the economy of reaction in the digital world. Reaction is currency. Social media platforms are built on your emotional responses. Outrage, offense, judgment, comparison. Every comment, every retweet, every clapback is part of the attention economy, and attention is the most valuable resource you possess. When you react instantly to a post, to a headline, to a stranger's opinion, you're feeding a system that profits from your distraction. You are the product. That's why cultivating emotional discipline online is just as important as doing it in the real world, maybe even more so. Before you post, ask, am I contributing signal, or just more noise? Is this response adding value, or feeding ego? Am I reacting to provoke, or staying silent to protect my peace? You don't have to comment on everything. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to be everywhere, all the time. A wise person understands attention is sacred, and not everyone deserves yours. 10. The warrior and the monk, balancing power and peace. There's an old archetype in many philosophical traditions, the warrior monk, a figure who is capable of great violence, but chooses stillness, someone with the strength to destroy, but the wisdom to build. In this character, strength and peace are not opposites, they're fused. This is the ultimate model of emotional mastery, because peace is not passivity, it's power, restrained, and restraint is harder than reaction. Imagine someone says something that deeply offends you. The old version of you lashes out, the warrior strikes, but the higher version of you, the monk within, recognizes the deeper victory, not responding, watching, moving on with full awareness, and no attachment. That's not weakness, that's transcendence. And ironically, when people realize they can't provoke you, they begin to respect you. Because people don't respect reactivity. They exploit it, but they deeply respect control. They admire presence. So cultivate both the warrior's strength and the monk's silence. 11. When to react. Choosing your battles wisely. Let's be clear, not reacting doesn't mean being a doormat. There are moments to speak up, to assert, to defend, but the difference is this. Wise people choose their battles. Reactive people fight every war. The Stoics weren't pacifists. They were disciplined strategists. They asked, is this action necessary? Does it serve a higher purpose? Or is it just ego flaring up? Before reacting, run your trigger through this mental filter. Is it within my control? Does it affect something I deeply value? Will reacting improve the situation, or just my emotional state? Sometimes silence is power, other times speaking is duty. Wisdom is knowing the difference. You don't win by never reacting. You win by reacting only when it matters. 12. Final reflections. Becoming the calm in the storm. There's a quiet revolution happening. People are waking up to the truth that emotional chaos is a trap. That being constantly outraged, overstimulated, and reactive is not a sign of depth. It's a sign of disconnection from self. We've been sold the idea that being real means expressing every feeling, all the time. But the ancients knew the most real version of you is the one that sees clearly through the storm, not the one caught in it. Stillness is not a lack of passion. It's the highest form of intelligence. It's the flame that burns without wild smoke. The ocean that moves beneath the surface. If you want to be rare in this noisy world, become calm. If you want to be powerful, master your reactions, because in the end, the world will keep spinning, people will keep provoking, life will remain chaotic, but your mind, that's your domain, and if you can rule your mind, You've already won the only battle that ever really mattered. If this message resonated with you, take it with you. Don't just think about it, live it. Practice pausing, choose silence, master your inner world, and watch how everything outside begins to change. Stay calm, stay clear, and maintain sovereignty. 13. The myth of strength through anger. We've been taught a dangerous myth, that anger equals strength, that the louder you are, the more powerful you seem, that the ability to dominate, humiliate, and intimidate others is some mark of authority. But anger is not strength. It's often a sign of weakness in disguise, because it takes no discipline to erupt, it takes no wisdom to retaliate, but it takes immense inner power to feel that wave of fury rise and choose to breathe instead of break. True strength is found in the person who could hurt, but doesn't, who could destroy, but builds, who could curse, but stays silent. Anger is fast, but strength is slow, steady, unshakable. The ancient Stoics didn't banish emotion, they trained it. They didn't deny their anger, they mastered it. Seneca wrote, "No plague has cost the human race more than anger," and he was right, because in a single moment of rage, we can undo years of peace. So next time you feel the fire, don't suppress it, but don't obey it either. Just observe, let it pass like thunder. You are the sky, not the storm. 14. Learning from silence. What we miss by always speaking. We fear silence, not because it's empty, but because it confronts us. In silence, we hear the echo of thoughts we've avoided. We face the truths that noise helps us escape. That's why many people fill every gap with words, even unnecessary ones. But silence is sacred. In many philosophical traditions, Zen Buddhism, Christian monasticism, the Desert Fathers, indigenous wisdom, silence isn't seen as a void, but a vessel, a space where clarity emerges. When you choose not to respond, you're not retreating, you're watching, listening, letting the dust settle before deciding. Many mistakes are made in noise, many regrets are born in haste, but wisdom lives in the quiet. You don't always need the last word, you don't always need to correct the story. Sometimes the most profound answer is no answer at all. The world doesn't need more voices, it needs more understanding, and that begins in silence. 15. Offense as a habit. Breaking the cycle of emotional addiction. For many people, being offended has become a habit, even an identity. We see it in the way conversations spiral, how people search for reasons to feel personally attacked. Offense becomes a kind of emotional addiction, a spike of righteousness, a burst of indignation, a dopamine hit of moral superiority. But here's the danger. The more you get used to reacting, the more it becomes your default, until every disagreement feels like an insult, every challenge feels like betrayal, every difference feels like a threat. It's not just emotionally exhausting, it's spiritually corrosive, because you start living on edge, you stop listening, you lose nuance, everything becomes black or white, friend or enemy, right or wrong. The way out: break the cycle. When you feel the familiar pull of outrage, pause, ask, what is this really about? Am I defending my values or my identity? Is this worth my peace? Because once you stop being offended by everything, you start seeing clearly, and clarity is the beginning of wisdom. 16. The inner judge. When you're offended by yourself, sometimes the person you're most offended by is you, that internal voice that shames you for failing, that criticizes your thoughts, that replays old mistakes on a loop. This is the most subtle and persistent source of suffering. You may think you're angry at the world, but often, it's self-directed judgment wearing a mask. So how do we deal with this? By shifting from judgment to observation. Instead of saying, "I'm so stupid for reacting that way," try, "Interesting, I reacted. I wonder why." This switch, from blame to curiosity, is transformational. It doesn't mean letting yourself off the hook. It means replacing punishment with presence. Because growth doesn't come from shame, it comes from compassionate self-awareness. If you can face your flaws without flinching, you become unoffendable, even by yourself, and that's where true freedom begins. 17. The art of the unspoken victory.
Not every win needs to be visible. Sometimes your greatest victory is the one no one sees. Not sending the angry text, not replying to the petty insult, not proving your point to someone who's committed to misunderstanding you. These are the quiet moments where your character is forged. We live in a world obsessed with performance, with recognition, with being right, loudly, but inner peace often comes from invisible choices, silent triumphs. You don't need to win the argument, you need to win yourself, because you are not here to convince the world, you are here to embody your truth, to walk your path with clarity, grace and conviction. So the next time you bite your tongue, take a breath and let go. Celebrate that, not as suppression, but as self-mastery. It may not trend, but it transforms. 18. Becoming unshakable. A way of being all of this. The calm, the clarity, the silence, the strength. It's not a tactic, it's a way of being. It's about becoming a person who can walk through the chaos of life with an anchored heart. A person who doesn't need to control everything, because they trust themselves. A person who can stand in the storm and still see the stars. You don't get there through shortcuts. You get there through practice, through failing, observing, refining, through daily reminders, through surrounding yourself with wisdom instead of noise. And slowly, you change, not just how you react, but who you are, until one day someone tries to provoke you, and you simply smile. Not because you're suppressing emotion, but because you've outgrown the game. That is the art of becoming unshakable. 19. The power of not reacting, choosing stillness in a reactive world. We live in a world where everything begs for a reaction. Social media thrives on outrage. News is engineered to provoke. People feel seen not when they're understood, but when they're argued with. And in this chaos, stillness becomes an act of rebellion. When you don't react, people think you didn't notice. But the truth is, you noticed everything. You just chose peace over ego. That's not ignorance, it's intelligence. It takes wisdom to discern what deserves your energy, because not everything that touches you deserves your touch. Not every problem needs your input. Not every attack deserves a counterattack. Sometimes the strongest move is to simply remain still, not as avoidance, but as a deliberate choice, a refusal to let the world dictate your state of being, a quiet power that says, I decide how I show up. You're not a puppet, you are the puppeteer. 20. When they can't touch you, they try to trigger you. Here's an uncomfortable truth. The more grounded you become, the more certain people will try to knock you off balance, not because they hate you, but because your calm confronts their chaos. If they can't manipulate you, they'll try to provoke you. If they can't control your life, they'll try to control your emotions. If they can't shake your sense of self, they'll try to pull you into drama, just to feel powerful. This is a test, because anyone can stay calm when they're alone. But can you remain composed in the face of mockery? Can you remain rooted when someone tries to drag you into their storm? That's when your inner work is revealed. So the next time someone throws bait, remember, you don't have to bite. You don't have to prove, defend, explain or retaliate. You just have to remember who you are. 21. Freedom isn't loud, it's subtle. We often associate freedom with grand gestures, with walking away, with cutting people off, with shouting, I don't care from the rooftops. But real freedom, it's quiet. It's the freedom to walk into a room and not need to dominate. The freedom to hear criticism and not collapse. The freedom to love without clinging, to disagree without disrespect, to detach without resentment. Freedom is the ability to hold life gently, to let things come and go, to observe without absorbing, to act without attachment to outcome. It doesn't mean you don't feel, it means you don't drown, because your peace no longer depends on circumstances. It comes from within, and nothing outside you can take it away. 22. From reaction to response. The path of emotional alchemy. Reaction is automatic. Response is conscious. This is the alchemy of emotional maturity, transforming raw reactions into thoughtful responses. It starts with a pause, a breath, a split second of presence between stimulus and action, and in that space, everything changes. You're no longer a slave to your instincts. You become a sculptor of your behavior. This is what the Stoics called prohes, the ability to choose your response, no matter the circumstance. It's a superpower. You could be insulted and respond with a question. You could be mocked and respond with a smile. You could be provoked and respond with stillness. This isn't weakness, it's mastery, because to rule your emotions is to rule your life. 23. Maturity is measured in what you ignore. You'll know you're growing when you no longer need to fight every battle. When you see someone being petty and you let it slide. When someone posts about you and you don't reply. When someone tries to pull you into their drama and you stay grounded. That's maturity. It's not about becoming cold or indifferent. It's about becoming wise enough to choose what matters and realizing that most things don't. People will always project, gossip, assume, twist. You can't control them, but you can control what gets your attention. So choose your peace, choose your energy, choose your silence, and let the noise pass like wind through the trees. 24. The silent victory. When you walk away without looking back. Sometimes the most powerful move you can make is walking away, not with bitterness, not with revenge, just release. You outgrow the need to win. You outgrow the need to explain. You outgrow the need to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding you. Walking away doesn't mean giving up. It means you've finally decided that your well-being matters more than winning the war. That your time is too valuable to be wasted in cycles that don't serve your growth. It's not an act of pride, it's an act of clarity. Because when you stop chasing closure, you find peace. When you stop clinging to what hurts, you make room for what heals. And sometimes the quietest exit leaves the loudest echo. 25. Becoming untouchable. The philosophy of inner wealth. What if your peace was your wealth? Not your bank account, not your reputation, not your status, but your ability to remain centered, even when the world is shaking. That's inner wealth, the unshakable kind, the kind no one can take. Because when you build your life on external validation, you become fragile. But when you build it on inner principles, truth, discipline, stillness, you become untouchable. This is what all the great traditions point toward. In Taoism, be like water, soft, yet powerful. In Stoicism, control what you can, let go of the rest. In Buddhism, desire nothing, and nothing can own you. These are not just abstract ideas, they are blueprints for unshakable living. And once you taste that inner freedom, you never want to go back. 26. Final reflections. You are the master of your atmosphere. Here's the truth. You don't control the world, but you control the weather inside your soul. You can be a storm, or you can be the calm before it. You can mirror the chaos of others, or become a mirror so still that others see themselves clearly in you. That's your power, and it's quiet, humble, invisible, perhaps, but deeply felt. And if you can learn to protect your peace, to guard your energy, and to move through life with grace instead of aggression, then you've already won. Not because you're better, but because you've become whole. So the next time you feel the pull to react, stop, feel your feet on the ground, feel the breath in your lungs, remember who you are, because in that moment of stillness, you become free.